dish in your kitchen. So there were like, so every ingredient is there, but will you give all the ingredients, or like you take some part of each ingredient and you make a recipe, right? So like that in databases also, there will be various tables. Whenever you are asking for data, we need to prepare that in a proper way and we need to give the response. So for all these activities, we need to have a better interface. So coming to the first interfaces, earlier there used to be something called as RPCs. RPC means remote procedure calls. Okay. So then within these RPCs, there are different variants called as XmlRPC. Means they are using XML as a payload. Then like JSON RPC came to picture that uses JSON as a payload. And I already discussed what is an XML, what is JSON, like that. And in the evolution process, next the SOAP interface came. SOAP is like a more stricter version. Even still, some kind of banking applications use it. So they predominantly use XML. It's not mandatory that they should use XML, but SOAP majorly use XML itself. Then in the process, REST APIs came to picture. REST is like now ruling the world. So predominantly you'll see REST means a true state it will represent. So we will have different endpoints and all these things. I will tell shortly. Then what happened is like there is another thing called as GraphQL which came. So the point is like, so if you want the users, say like we create one endpoint called as names. So names if I give, so you come with that endpoint, you get only the names. So if I'll get the qualification. Or like if I want something else, you go for a particular endpoint, you get only the data. But if you want a combination of data, you cannot ask the developer to develop as per your need. Just imagine. So the request API is also developed by some person. If he is within your organization or within your reach, you can ask. Just imagine like a Google is giving a REST API for consuming something. You cannot ask Google to customize the input output based upon your needs. So you need to go to 2 or 3 endpoints and customize whatever you want. Maybe in the first endpoint you want 2 records, in the third endpoint you want something else. Like that you need to process. So instead of you doing that, to give the user the flexibility, so they came up with GraphQL. In GraphQL, you create like a data set actually, or data points. So if you create the data point, the users can access. So means data will be exposed for them. They need to know how to create the query and access the data. So users will take the choice. So you don't create anything. So that also can be done differently. Using Django, Graphene, we can create. Strawberry, we can consume. There are multiple modules. Next, the last most important thing these days is gRPC. So gRPC means Google RPC. So it's like reinventing the wheel. So see, it started from RPC, again it is going back to RPC. So the RPC concept is like, hey, you want something to be done, say like prime number generation. You give a number, so and till that numbers you want to generate all prime numbers. So you give that request, it will go to the server. In the server, it will run and give you the response. Rather, that code itself will come to you and execute. This concept may be slightly confusing, but that's how it works. So Google famous with these RPCs. So they have like different things like protobufs and others. So protobuf. So mostly when you are working in Go language, we use it. So even in Python also we can use it. But Python mostly this REST APIs and GraphQL are dominating these days. So this is the journey. But is it an end to this evolution? No, there is no end to evolution. Things are going on. So this is the current state. So maybe like I will make like explanation. Now within these RPCs, so web applications. So if I can start with first, I can go with a small RPC, or like before that, there is some concept called as static applications. So static application. Yeah. So coming to the case of simple HTTP server. So how it will be working is readme.md. So here is simple. In Python 2, it is called as simple HTTP server. In Python 3, it is called as http.server. So how it actually works means like if you want to expose your current directory to the outside environment, so simply you can run this command. So in the same fashion here also, if you notice, in Python 3 we are right now. In Python 3, what we can do is like, I can take this command as it is. Python 3 means like, so Python -m, okay, like this. So in the current directory right now, you see, I was somewhere here. I could see the list of files. Oh, I am in the outside directory itself. Directly here itself I will do. So in which directory if I do, in that directory, it will start a server in 8000 port. It is saying that I started the server in 8000 port. If you click on this link, it will try to open it in the browser. So in the browser directly, it will not open. So if you see that, okay, let me open it. You see that directly it will not open. So anytime you need to understand one thing. If locally something is running, there is something called as local host. From now you will remember this. Local host colon so and so means any server when you want to connect, you need to know in which server and within that server what port. So every time you need to remember these two things. Now did you see that it gave the list of all the files? In the same fashion, for the local host, they gave some IP address also. So that is 127.0.0.1. So this is like local host IP address. So if you studied about the IP address classifications, this is one reserved IP address. It is only for the research purpose. Every device will have this IP address, and this is called as a loopback address. When you connect to it, it will again connect to the same server. So coming back, in which directory I have executed, in the directory it created these things. These are all the directories which I have, means folders. So it is exposing my file system directly. So don't you think it's a good way? Static website, right? So whatever content you have, you are just exposing. So if you want to just see this, you can see your files as it is. If I have a Jupyter notebook, I want to see it. So Jupyter notebooks, it cannot show directly. That's what we're doing. But if you have a HTML file or something else, maybe like when we are in the code quality, you remember we created some kind of static analysis. So maybe in the unit testing, if you notice, we created some kind of scripts, right? So PyCache files, scripts directories or something. Maybe if yeah, with some kind of explanation, PyCache files, so coverage files. So all the things. So whichever it can show, it is showing. For others, it is showing like this. Certain files we cannot see in the browser. So only HTML files, PDF they can show. Others they cannot show if the browser cannot have the no capability. In that case, they will download. This is what any typical HTTP server. Now, this site you cannot access directly. If you need to access, there is something called as the ngrok. So ngrok is something like if I need to expose my website, whatever may be, static website or whatever may be, to the outside world, I need to go to it. So it is like we need to do a sign up. So or like sign up for the first time. I have already an account. I can just do with a login. So once I logged in, so yeah. So for that, I need to walk through this directory. So Python so and so. So it is working. Means these modules are built in. So now I understood. From that, you are taking two things: simple XmlRPC request handler and this thing. So for that, first we need to create an RPC interface. So RPC interface means it's simple like a class. So the request handler you want to create. So this simple request handler, so XmlRPC handler, will do all the job. So from that you create your own request handler. So request handler, okay. Okay. So like that, whenever you want to create a custom exception, you inherit an exception, right? Like that. So for the RPC, we need to create the paths. These are called as RPC paths. Like how we have a RESTful API endpoints. Like that, he had paths. We can have multiple paths. Maybe like I will create RPC2 as one path. These actually were like a tuple of values. So that's a beautiful way of doing. So like this I wrote. So we need to make a request to the particular path. Then like these are like we need to make a request to this path and we get the access. Very firstly we created a path. Now for that we need to create a server. So after paths, how do you create a server means with simple HTTP server. So in the server, we need to give what is the host, what is the endpoint. So for that, first local host and like what is the port on which you want to run 8000. So why every time 8000? Basically, you need to understand the first ports 1, 2, 3, 4. All these things are already used. So if you don't know, the ports are divided into two parts. Like one is like dedicated ports and next is ephemeral ports. Ephemeral ports means way after that. If you go into the networking, you will understand it. In any server, so TR4 applications will run. Very simple example for you is like in your phone, how many apps are running? WhatsApp will run, Facebook will run, Instagram will run, everything will run. If I send a message to WhatsApp, why you are getting only in WhatsApp? Why not in Facebook? Because in your system, means in your mobile also, there are different applications which are running in different ports. No two applications will run on the same port. So how they will ensure? That is the point of the operating system, how the app installation, they will take care of. So even when you are working, you are creating, so you should not create two applications on the same port. If something is running, it will not allow. You can try the on your own, but it's not good. So mostly people, when you are developing, they do like 8,000. So 8,080 or like 8,001, 2, 3. This is like a good way. So for doing. So next, in this particular thing I created, now I need to have a request handler on which I want to do. And for that request handler, I need to pass on, say request handler, and I want to create that as a server, as server. Now I created one server like that. So this setup and everything fine. Yeah, comma. See. For the server, I need to register the introspection functions and I need to work. So once it is done, so the process is very simple that first we need to create one server. For that server, we need to register something and we need to work. So the logic is that first we created this server. So that server we are registering. After registering, we need to do. So first register the server with this, it's like, yeah, there is some issue. So typo somewhere. Yes, have a noted. Yeah, sure. So first I created an RPC path. So you can see that we are registering to this power. So it is like, just imagine like, so power function we are registering. So, and then I added one logic. So one functionality I have, it is like an adder function. If you pass like two arguments, it will add it. Or like some other, I have one more functionality where I have a class and in that class I have multiplication. So like that I'm registering. So whichever I have, I'm registering. Either you can register a function or like power is like a built-in, right? POW, that function, or like I added my own custom function that also I'm registering. I'm giving a pseudo name for it called as add. Similarly, I have one class that also instance I'm registering. Whatever the logics, whatever you have, everything you need to register. Then you need to serve forever. So once if I run it, that server, so it will start running. So then after it running, we need to have a client. So to have a client for it, so I need to create a client.py. Client is for like consuming. From XML, if you want to consume, say like I created a client. So let me do like a split right, such that we can see both the things side by side. So after seeing this one, you can notice that we need to work on that by creating a small client. So at what server we are working, that server port and everything we need to give. So I created, we need 8000 port, right? You see here, 8000 port I created. So I created a client. For that client, I need to do all operations. So first, if I do like something like, so power POW I registered. Now I can ask s dot POW of 2, 3. Power is a built-in function, so you need not do any definitions explicitly. It is doing. So as the server is running, you should not touch this terminal. You need to go to another terminal. Maybe you can create a split terminal. So terminal also can be splitted. So in VS Code, you can create and you can go to this directory and ask. So copy the path. Yeah, I have copied this path and I'm doing Python. So client so and so. So s dot power of 2, 3. So did you see 2 to the power of 3 is executing? So you got the result. So like that, you can ask for all. So I have like 3 things which are registered. For all the 3, I am asking. So addition function, I gave a pseudonym called as add. I need not ask addition function, just add. What are the pseudonym I gave? And similarly, these things I added. So I have a function. That function call I am registering means it is like an instance. For that instance, directly you can ask the methods, right? So that we are going. So if you go like this, now you can get both. You see, if I execute now, all the 3 calls were executing. So a hit will come post request for execution. So whatever the job is there, secure jobs, you can place one there and you can expose. So don't you see RPC means what? The functionality, remote procedure call. So the functions are also called as procedures. So other name for functions. So remote procedure call, the function will remotely execute for us. So direct functionality executing. So now there is no point of endpoint or anything. Directly it is doing. So similarly, if you want to list all the methods which are there, so we have registered 3 things, but tomorrow 10 things can be registered or anything. If you want to know all of them, you can ask sys.system.list methods. Then it will list all the things it has. First it will do. Did you see in real time it is executing, computation is happening and you getting the things.